Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
The Bureau of Customs implemented a search warrant on a property of the Discaya family in Pasig City.
Tensions spark as House lawmakers debate whether to invite some of their fellow Solons in the flood control hearing.
New Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon has given himself 60 days to reorganize the agency.
The DOST is ready to help local government units or LGU assess rivers and drainage systems during the rainy season. First in the news, Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon temporarily halted all bidding for locally funded DPWH projects for 2 weeks. Dizon said the halt is needed to develop safeguard measures against anomalous projects. He also requested a DOJ lookout order against several DPWH officials and contractors allegedly involved in the anomaly.
All right, heated exchanges mark the opening of the House Infrastructure Committee's hearing on flood control projects. Marian Enriquez has the report.
The House Infrastructure Committee was supposed to grill contractors and resource persons from the DPWH about flood control projects on Tuesday. But as soon as the inquiry began, lawmakers found themselves butting heads with each other, stalling the hearing at least 4 times. The first back and forth ensued when Akbayan Party List Representative Shell Jokno sought to ensure that no lawmaker has any conflict of interest with the hearing. Jokno's motion was seconded by ML Party List Representative Leila De Lima.
The motion, Mr. Chair, for all the members of the 3 committees to make a full disclosure of their financial, business, and pecuniary interests that may be directly or indirectly affected by any investigation into the government's past or present flood control project.
When the House of Representatives investigates anomalies in flood control projects, we must ask, is it wise? Is it prudent? Is it proper for this chamber to investigate itself when there are already reports that some members here may be involved in these very projects?
Despite reservations from other lawmakers, Jokno's motion was eventually carried. The committee gave its members 5 days to submit a written disclosure of any conflict of interest they may have. The second hurdle came when Caloocan Representative Egay Arize moved to invite former House Appropriations Chairman Zaldico and former Senate Finance Committee Chair Grace Poe to the inquiry. Both were in charge of the Bicameral Conference Committee, where insertions in the 2025 budget were allegedly made.
Sapagkat yung mismong pagpoproseso ng mga insertions na ito ay nanggaling sa mga tanggapan.
Wala akong narinig na denial man lang sa previous chairman o sa previous members ng committee. Does this mean na hindi nila kaya i-dispute yung sinabi ko na 2025 budget is the most corrupt budget ever passed in the history of Congress? So I second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Members of the majority then tried to block Arize's motion.
I am objecting on the motion, Chairman. I would like to know the reason why, because I would like to find out if we're going to invite them here, are they resource speakers or they are members of the House of Representatives? Are we going to ask them questions? Are they going to answer it?
The focus of our investigation is to nip the bud, putulin ang ugat para hindi na ulit tumubo. And with that, Mr. Chair, let's move forward to the interpellators that have signified their intention to ask questions.
At this point, Garin and Navotas Congressman Toby Chanco started bickering.
Sabi nyo kanina, kahit sino masagasaan, wala tayong sasantuhin, kahit congressman, kahit senador. So, paano tayo mag-iimbestiga? Paano nagkaroon ng insert? Under the name of Congressman Saldico, ang insertion sa BICAM as proponent siya is 13,803,693,000. And we do not want to invite him as a resource person.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Comsec, can you show this? Para lang sabihin hindi ako
Mr. Chair, with due courtesy.
Wait, I have the floor.
Yeah,
I have the floor.
Yeah,
I have the floor.
No, Mr. Chair.
I have the floor.
Just to, on the
I have the
record,
floor.
On the record, Mr.
I
Chair,
have the floor.
He did not refuse
Suspend.
to
I have the floor.
Mr. Chair, motion to suspend.
The hearing was then suspended, and when it resumed, Congressman Erice decided to defer his motion. As the hearing finally took off, lawmakers questioned relieved Bulacan 1st District Engineer Henry Alcantara on the questionable projects inspected by President Bongbong Marcos. Here, Alcantara admitted something.
Ngayon, ang tanong, Engineer, kayo po ba ang nag-propose ng mga projects na ito na may isama sa NEP?
Gaya
Pakisagot lang po. Kayo po ba ang nag-propose ng mga projects na ito para may sali doon sa NEP ng district office nyo?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, walang politiko na involved dito. Kayo po ang nag-propose na ito.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, that's very clear. Now,
Alcantara also admitted to lapses on his part in the inspection of projects in Bulacan. The president himself lamented incomplete and ghost multi-million structures fully paid for by the government.
Do you believe you are responsible for that? The ghost project na sinabi ng presidente, yung mga kakulangan sa mga materyales, sa kakulangan ng mga delivery ng supply ng materials, do you believe you are responsible for that?
Yes, Your Honor. Negligence on my part. Inamin ko po may kakulangan ako dahil I did not personally go to it.
The House Infracom invited 16 government contractors of flood control projects, but only 11 were present. Those who skipped the hearing included businesswoman Sara Disgaya. The committee has issued subpoenas to these contractors who snubbed Tuesday's inquiry. For News 5, I'm Marian Enriquez. We are One News.
Former Bulacan 1st District Engineer Henry Alcantara admitted to lawmakers that he goes to casinos. During a House inquiry, Alcantara said he gambled 2 to 3 times a month since 2023. He also acknowledged being fully aware of Memorandum Number 6, which prohibits government employees from entering casinos. When asked by Representative Joel Chua how he managed to enter such establishments, Alcantara said he relied on a VIP host invitation and used an identification card under an alias. Now, the House Appropriations Committee is scheduled to conduct a hearing on the proposed 2026 budget of the Department of Education. For more details, we have mobile journalist Amy Atienza on the ground. Hey, Amy.
Yes, good morning, Angela Jaco. Nandito nga tayo ngayon sa House of Representatives, and so far, napag-uusapan na ng House Committee on Appropriations pati na rin ng Department of Education kung saan nga ba ilalaan itong 1.2 trillion pesos na national budget nila para sa 2026. At kanina narinig na natin si Secretary Sonny Angara at nasabi niya na isa sa mga gusto nga maipagpatuloy ng Department of Education ay ang investment nila sa teacher support. Ito yung parang projects nila or programs na makakatulong para hindi na daw ganun kabigat ang workload ng mga teachers. Pero bukod pa dyan, mapapag-usapan din dito kung ano nga ba yung magiging plano rin ng Department of Education pagdating dyan sa mga shortage of classrooms, pati na rin sa quality of education na napag-usapan noong People's Budget Hearing, dahil marami rin na nagsasabi na noong People's Budget Hearing na kinakailangan pa ng more textbooks, pati na rin yung digitalization, kailangan daw mabigyang focus ng DepEd. Kaya patuloy nating aabangan kung ano nga ba magiging talakayan ng DepEd, pati na rin ng House Committee on Appropriations tungkol dyan.
Amy, naibanggit ba nila kung ano? Kasi I remember we spoke to Congressman Roman Romulo a month back, at nagiging issue daw kasi ngayon, aside from lahat na nabanggit mo, is yung pag nagkakaroon ng bagyo due to climate change, laging suspended ang mga classes. So they're finding a way to integrate formally already yung work study from home as a backup in case na tuloy-tuloy ang suspension.
Well, yan yung isa pa nga sa mga abangan natin, no? At nabanggit na rin naman dito na plano nga nilang maglaan din ng mga materials para sa mga estudyante for digitalization. So most likely makikita natin kung ano nga ba yung magiging plano din ng DepEd patungkol dito. Dahil nga nakikita natin, no, kahit ngayon paiba-iba na meron ng mga schools na naglilin into hybrid learning. Yeah. Meron din namang mga schools na full-on face-to-face classes pa. So titingnan natin kasi baka ang ilalaan dyan ng DepEd, syempre ay magkaroon na din ng uniformity sa mga different public schools and universities para nga hindi na rin magkagulo-gulo, lalo na kapag ganito na may mga situations nga na binabagyo, and actually hindi lang naman bagyo, yung kinakailangan din minsan mag-evacuate. So ayun, titingnan natin kung magiging usapan yan, pero most likely sasama yan, lalo na kapag pinag-usapan na natin yung sa digitalization, pati na rin sa pagbibigay ng mga devices para sa mga students.
Amy, on my part naman, ang maganda sigurong matalakay din dito sa budget deliberation for DepEd ay hindi na maulit yung nangyari last year, yung 2025 budget, kung saan, di ba, alam naman natin na hindi ang DepEd ang nakakuha ng pinakamataas na budget, which, taliwas yon sa ating konstitusyon. Dahil pinag-uutos sa ating konstitusyon, dapat pinakamataas ang budget na makukuha ng DepEd. So, ano yung mga naririnig mo dyan tungkol dun sa usapin na yon?
Well, so far, thankful naman daw kasi ang Department of Education dahil nga nasa 1.2 trillion pesos na yung naibigay na budget. And 928.5 billion pesos ang naibigay mismo dito nga na pinakamataas. So, yun yung inaabangan natin din, no, kung ano nga ba yung mga programa pa na nais nilang ilatag. And syempre, ayun nga, inayon na din kasi ito, sabi nga ni Representative Mika Suwansing, inayon na rin ito dun sa recommendation ng UNESCO na pinakamataas nga dapat ang education pagdating dito. So ayun, yung makikita nating mga programa nga, for sure, meron pa rin tayong maririnig tungkol sa infrastructures, of course, ng classrooms, pati na rin ng buildings sa mga public schools and universities. Pero abangan pa natin kung ano yung magiging talakayan dyan dahil magiging mahaba-haba ito. No? Usually kasi sa House of Representatives, dalawang department yung nilalaan nila or parang binibrief nila patungkol sa budget, pero ngayon nakalaan lang ang araw na to talaga para sa Department of Education.
Lastly on my part, Amy, yung nangyari kahapon, no, sa first day of hearing ng House of Representatives doon sa Anomalous Flood Control Project, naging mainit, na lahat yan nasa balita natin. After that heated exchange at natapos yung sesyon nila kahapon, yung hearing, ano na nangyari? Baka may mga nakuha kang impormasyon.
Well, most likely yun nga din na nasabi dito na hindi pa rin naman tapos yung magiging usapan patungkol nga dyan sa flood control projects. Patuloy lang din naman ang Infracom, lalo na nga dahil nga malaki-laki talaga itong usapin. And actually, nakapanayam na rin natin yung kahapon sa PAGCOR, no, si Chairman Altenco, at tinanong din natin tungkol dun sa pagkakasino naman ng mga DPWH officials. At sabi niya, syempre magkakaroon na rin sila ng mga developments patungkol dyan. Importante daw para sa kanya na magkaroon na din ng second screening sa mga casinos, lalo na yung mga accredited, of course, ng PAGCOR, para nga maiwasan yung mga ganitong instances. So tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang magiging usapan dito sa kamera patungkol nga dyan sa flood control projects, pati na rin sa mga infrastructures na kaugnay ng DPWH. Angela.
Alright, thank you. That was mobile journalist Amy Atienza reporting live.
Ay, gusto House of Representatives.
A very eventful week. But one thing na what took my eye or caught my attention na which best summarize kung ano yung nangyayari sa mga projects na ito was yung isang interview ni Congressman Irice sa Storycon, where they were asking him about kung umikot na siya sa Caloocan regarding flood control projects. Umikot naman daw siya. So anong assessment niya? Hindi naman daw substandard ang mga canal or drainage system ng Caloocan. Kaso pangit ang planning. Bakit? Maayos daw ang materials pero lahat daw ng drainage system ng Caloocan na ginawa ng DPWH, walang exit point ng water. So kung baga,
pang-ipon lang.
Parang gumawa ng basin,
basin
permanent, naglagay ka ng permanent structure ng drain, kaso wala siyang lagusan going out to the sea. Yeah. So that shows you, that is a very good example of what is happening here. It's either, number one, substandard ang material, parang si PBBM, hinawakan ng isang project na parang lalusaw, parang pulbos ang semento.
Yeah.
Number two, maganda naman daw material, sabi ni Congressman Egay. Kaso, walang labasa naman ng tubig. Or, mamili ka. What's on the third door? The third door, ladies and gentlemen, ghost projects. So, ganyan kakawawa ang mga kababayan natin ngayon. We have to deal things like this. With regards to basic services na dapat na provide sa atin.
That's why, di ba, kita mo naman over the weekend, umulan lang, lahat, buong bayan natin nabahana.
We understand there's climate change, but there should be at least factors that na may to mitigate that.
And during the hearings, may mga na-uncover din ng mga information tulad nitong ginawa ni Congressman Chel Jokno. He was able to extract information dito sa isa sa mga contractors na flag, no? At apparently, nakapagsabi siya doon na nag-donate din siya sa campaign election ni Senator Cheese Escudero. At he was later clarifying na the donation was made through him as a personal donation. Hindi daw yun galing dun sa kumpanya because alam naman natin, Omnibus Election Code, bawal mag-donate, di ba? Sa mga, tawag dito, sa mga politiko, di ba? Yung mga contractors. Pero yun, parang, di ba yan yung nakikita natin na gray area doon sa batas. Pero according naman to Chairman George Garcia, lahat yan i-review nila.
Pero parang yung logic na hinahabol nyo si Sara Diskaya sa bidding because siya owner ng isang kumpanya, pero yung iba, walang controlling ownership siya, so dapat hindi na, yung sinasabi ni Sara, hindi naman conflict. Hindi may influence ka pa rin doon. So just the same ganito sa issue ni Senator Chi, sinasabi ng iba, your personal capacity nagdo-donate ka, pero wala ka bang controlling decision over yung mga contracting company or construction company
kasi yung isa sa mga, alam ko yung amount, yung big amount ng percentage ng mga flood control projects from 2009, if I'm not mistaken, ay ang bulk nun, of course, marami din sa sa Sorsogon. Yun ang inuugnay nila. Of course, this is subject pa rin for investigation. But these are some of the information na nakuha during the hearing. And of course, yung DPWH na engineer, yung district engineer na pupunta sa casino, pumupunta sa casino gamit ibang peking ID. Tapos, inamin din niya through the hearing na ang tawag dito na pumipirma siya na completed yung project because presume regularity daw siya dahil parang sa chain of command. Meron silang mga taga-inspect, sinabi okay. So, okay na rin para sa kanya.
Duda pa ako dyan Parang feeling ko may fall guy pa yan Isa pang, before we go, isa pang abangan natin yung Wawaw Builders.
Yes.
Very interesting yung demeanor ng batang yan. Diba?
Kasi ang parang sinasabi nila, ang nangyayari, ang kalakaran is, kunyari, for example, hindi nakapasa si contractor A dun sa bidding, gawa sila or kuha sila ng lisensya ng ibang contractor. Pero in essence, yung lisensya lang ng contractors na yan, pero si contractor A pa rin ang gagawa. Ganun na nangyayari. Kaya dito daw, dun sa Wawaw Builder, wala siyang alam because ang accusation ng allegation dito ay pinahiram lamang yung construction, yung license.
And not only that, but also hindi niya alam yung nangyayari. Even operational concerns sa rin ng kumpanya. Kaya iniisip ng iba, who are you covering up for? Is there somebody bigger than you? Diba? Ang dami ng meme maglalabasan doon. But in the meantime, Angel.
I have the floor right now, Diego Castro. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The camp of the Diskaya family insists that they have nothing to hide after customs authorities raided their luxury vehicles. Here's the report.
The Bureau of Customs cordoned off and sealed 3 luxury vehicles found inside the St. Gerard construction office in Pasig. These belong to the Diskaya family, among the government's top 15 contractors with the biggest share of flood control projects. At a Senate hearing on Monday, Sara Diskaya admitted they own 28 luxury vehicles with 1 unit alone worth 42 million pesos. Customs served a search warrant for 12 vehicles but only found 2 in the family garage, a Maserati and a Toyota Land Cruiser. They also found a Cadillac Escalade which was not covered by the warrant. Owning luxury cars is not illegal, but Customs wants to know if the correct taxes were paid.
Wala naman po silang pangamba na ito ay smuggled talaga at sila nag-smuggle, mas makakabuti po sa kanila na isurrender yan kasi maobliga po kami na mag-search warrant sa bawat bahay po nila, sa bawat opisina po nila. Mas masakit po sa ulo yun.
During the raid, orange DPWH barriers were also seen inside the compound. Residents say the luxury vehicles used to be visible from outside the gate, But now, barriers have been placed and tight security is enforced around the area. Senator Jingo Estrada, meanwhile, revealed that the Diskaya family and their company actually own 80 vehicles, half of them luxury units. But 3 of the luxury cars mentioned in the Senate hearing reportedly do not appear in Land Transportation Office records. The Diskaya camp insists they have nothing to hide.
Wala ho kaming illegal na itinatago na yung mga sasakyan na nabanggit doon sa Senate hearing kahapon, yan po ay dumaan sa tamang proseso.
But why only a few cars were found in the garage?
Yung iba ho kasi under preventive maintenance, yung iba ginagamit, saka yung medyo mabababa, inilipat to sa mataas na lugar.
By nightfall, more luxury vehicles were returned to the Diskaya garage in Pasig, including a Rolls-Royce, a Toyota Tundra, a Bentley, and a Lincoln Navigator. The family says this proves they are cooperating with customs. All units have been sealed by customs and placed under round-the-clock guard. Customs Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno said that the agency will review import records to check compliance with customs laws. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
Former DPWH Secretary Manuel Bonoan formally handed over leadership to Vince Dizon as the agency faces scrutiny on flood control projects. Here is the report.
Former DPWH Secretary Manuel Bonoan personally welcomed Secretary Vince Dizon at the agency's headquarters, marking the formal turnover of leadership at the Department of Public Works and Highways. During the ceremony, Bonoan handed over the DPWH flag to Dizon, symbolizing the official transfer of authority.
I leave this post with a full heart, with enduring hope and respect for the department. Mabuhay ang DPWH, mabuhay ang ating bagong Secretary ng Department of Public Works and Highways, Secretary Vince Dizon.
President Bongbong Marcos accepted Bonoan's resignation amid allegations surrounding the so-called ghost flood control projects. Meanwhile, Secretary Dizon has given himself 60 days to reorganize the agency. He ordered courtesy resignations from all DPWH officials. While many are competent and dedicated, Dizon emphasized the need to remove those not performing properly.
It is a difficult process, but it is a necessary process. Sometimes it requires a seismic event, to use the language, no? To force that institution to evolve.
Bonoan also submitted the initial validation report on flood control projects. Out of 1,600 projects, 15 are missing. Most of these projects are in Bulacan, with others scattered across regions.
Hindi pa naman ghost time. This has to be validated.
Titignan po natin kung ano yung mga red flag na yan. Kung kakailanganin pong baguhin, tanggalin, o kung ano man ang kailangan gawin. Kasama po yan sa proseso.
Upon leaving the agency, Bonoan denied involvement in any anomalies related to the flood control projects.
I can shout, hindi po ako involved.
To understand how these recent developments may affect public perception of the government, we turn to Dr. Dennis Coronacion, Chairman of the UST's Department of Political Science. Good morning, Prof. Thanks for joining us again.
Yes, Prof. Good morning.
Can you hear us okay? Yan. So, tinatawag pa natin si Prof.
I think it's a signal problem, internet.
Because a lot of people right now are joining the conversation, no? Since ito nga usapin na to ng flood control projects, no?
And I'd like to ask also his opinion kasi yung about the issue itself of corruption, which is lumalabas ulit. I mean, it's been going for the longest time, pero medyong nag-highlight because of the flood control project. I wanna ask because Indonesia nagkaroon ng boiling point already. Pumutok na ang tao sa galit. I'm going to ask, can that happen also in the Philippines? Or iba ang mind, huwag naman sana. Pero or iba ang mindset ng Pinoy.
Civilized society, hopefully, and we should, and I hope na hindi mangyari yun, di ba? So, a lot, as I've said kanina, a lot of people are joining the conversation already because nga, hindi nila matanggap itong nangyayari, di ba? Parang, tapos and then you will see the post of yung mga related na related personality sa mga contractors na nalilink nga dito sa mga flood control, anomalous flood control na to, na, having the best time of their lives, having all the best, cars, bags, and then the travels, ganyan. So, syempre, yung mga tao, di mo sila masisi na magalit. But of course, we want to still, manaig pa rin yung rule of law.
Let's face it, kasi nauso sa social media yung flaunting what you have. The intent of mga Instagram and Facebook was not really that, but it was to connect with other people, to share positive pictures. Pero nangyari kasi, share saan ka kumakain, share saan ka pumunta, nagbakasyon, ano kotse minamanayaw mo, sino kasama mong big time. So, yun, naging kultura ng mga supposed nepo babies na inayabang yung mga ari-arian nila.
Of course, we needed to remind our government officials na nasa batas yun na, di ba, dapat ikaw ay modest life lamang. Diba, yun ang sinasabi natin. But of course, mamaya, pag-usapan pa natin ito, balikan natin mamaya si Professor Denise Coronacion. For the meantime, Senator Amy Marcos has vowed to oppose Justice Secretary Boying Remulla's bid to become the next ombudsman. Here's the report.
Senator Amy Marcos vowed to oppose Justice Secretary Boying Remulla's bid to become the next ombudsman. In a press conference, Marcos said she will write to the Judicial and Bar Council, which vets candidates for the post. She alleged that Remulla's appointment is part of a plan to jail Vice President Sara Duterte and her allies after failed ouster move through People's Initiative and impeachment.
It's the new phase in the effort to get rid of VP Sara before 2028. And since the PI failed, the impeachment failed, therefore the third attempt is lawfare at its very worst. Imprison Inday Sara, all the Duterte allies, including myself perhaps. Plunder will be the name of the game. No bail and imprisonment until 2028.
Marcos also claimed that acting Ombudsman Dante Vargas is being pressured to dismiss the complaint she filed against Remulla, which stemmed from the arrest and turnover of former President Rodrigo Duterte to the International Criminal Court.
Ang mensahe ko naman kay bagong Deputy OIC Ombudsman Vargas ay simple lamang. Kung nayayanig ka na sa pressure, isabuhay mo na lang ang sikat ng kanta ni April Boy Regino. Kapag nariyan na ang suhol, hindi ko kayang tanggapin.
The Judicial and Bar Council yesterday wrapped up its public interviews for ombudsman applicants, with Remulla among those who faced the panel. He insisted he will not allow himself to be used for political warfare if appointed. The president has until October 25 to name the next ombudsman from the JBC shortlist.
Itong JBC is very critical kasi siya ang hahabol. And we see this issue sa flood control. So, ombudsman hahabol sa mga tiwaling officials nito. Number 2, sinasabi nila yung mga supposedly na-dismiss na impeachment case. The ombudsman can take a look at what happened there also. So,
that's why kailangan yung uupo na ombudsman, sinasabi nila, malinis. Walang kaso, walang pending cases. Tulad nito kasi sinasabi ni Senator Amy Marcos, meron kasing kaso sa ombudsman pending cases.
Plus
si Secretary Remulla. Dahil nag-file siya yung time na inaresto si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte.
Plus he's sitting No, plus he's a sitting secretary of the DOJ, coming from the administration. All of a sudden, you'll transition to a position that's supposed to be impartial. May point naman din si Madam Senator.
But we'll see, no? Because hindi naman tayo yung
at the end of the day, the JBC will vote. I think they need 4 votes to move on to the shortlist, di ba?
Tsaka ang dami talaga kasi they will have they will have exams, they will have to produce submit mga clearances
pero
from
parang
different agencies.
Ang mainit ngayon na pangalan yung isang justice ng Associate Justice ng Court of Appeals, I forgot his name, si Kim Henares, nababanggit din. Basta 4 silang may init na pangalan na sabi nila, it's about time na kailangan mabagsik ang ilagay.
Kailangan, parang hahabol, diba talaga, sa mga government officials. And of course, sinasabi nga din natin dito sa ombudsman na to, ay ang tanong dito, I think yung first ever interview nila in public itong kanilang during the application process, tinanong sila kung ibabalik ba nila yung lifestyle check sa mga government officials. Because during the term of retired ombudsman Samuel Martires, tinanggal niya yon because ang sinasabi niya, people can just hide daw sa mga dummy accounts, yung mga parang very flawed daw yung system ng lifestyle check, kaya tinanggal nila.
Flawed, di ayusin nyo, ba't tawag nyo i-cancel?
So kaya isa yun sa mga mainit na tanong dito sa mga ombudsman applicants, kung ibabalik ba nila yung lifestyle check sa mga government officials.
Alright, don't go away because we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Now, as we said earlier, to understand how these recent developments on the anomalous flood control projects may affect public perception of the government, we turn to Dr. Dennis Coronacion, Chairman of the USC's Department of Political Science, for the second time. Magandang umaga po sa inyo. Can you hear us okay?
Hi, Doc.
Yes, loud and clear. Magandang umaga po sa inyo. Magandang umaga rin sa mga taga-subaybay.
Doc, we were talking kanina when we were trying to get through to you. Kasi sa Indonesia na punong-puno na ang mga citizenry sa corruption, and now you see these flood control projects left and right. Mga politicians nagagalit, kala mo ngayon lang nangyayari, ang sabi nila. And every time umuulan, bumabalik na naman ang galit ng mga Pilipino dahil nakikita nila yung nangyayari. No, so how do you think all of this, what's happening, is this leading to a possible boiling point in the near future?
Well, if there's anything, if we're going to compare the case of the Indonesians with the Filipinos and their respective levels of tolerance towards their political leaders, malaki yung pinagkaiba, no? Obviously, the Indonesians are not very tolerant of the corrupt practices of their political leaders, while Filipinos, I don't know, baka we've already become manhid, we've already become tolerant of these bad behaviors of our political leaders. I don't know if it's going to reach to a point that we're going to follow what the Indonesians are doing right now. Pero maganda yun, tingin ko if that's going to have any good impact on the Indonesian government, matatakot yung mga leaders nila na magpatuloy sa kanilang mga corrupt practices. Pero sa atin naman, yung level of tolerance natin, yung high level of tolerance sa mga Filipinos, tingin ko mas lalo pang nakapagpalakas ng loob ng ating mga political leaders na gumawa ng mga kalokohan.
Gusto ko itanong, Doc, sabi mo tolerance, is it tolerance or desensitized na lang ang Pilipino? Parang it's a new normal. Like, for example, you'll see people in offices take home a pencil that belongs to the company and doesn't think that it's a small form of corruption. So parang naging, it's normal. Is it parang normalized?
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you po na I think it has become a norm. It has become normalized in our society. Hindi lang yung yung mga maliliit na bagay like bringing home yung mga office equipment, office tools, and thinking na okay lang yon. Meron pa iba yung mga humingi ng pabor sa mga kamag-anak nila who are government.
Palakasan system.
Yeah, palakasan.
Yeah.
Yung mga gano'n, mapakihugot mo naman yung lisensya ko, nahuli ako eh. So baka hihugutin mo. Diba? So mga gano'n small favors being asked from our government employees, public officials, they're all indicating that corruption is being in whatever form is being tolerated in the Philippines.
All right, so more than the hearings that we are watching recently, hearings from House of Representatives, hearings from the Senate, ang mas na-highlight ngayon dito, Prof, ang nakikita ko yung public outrage, through posting sa social media. Is it right, you think, na pati daw yung mga kamag-anak, mga anak ng linked contractors na to sa anomalous flood control projects na to ay dinadamay? Kasi there is an ongoing debate right now na, of course, sabi ng ganun, isama yan sila because sila kamag-anak. Pangalawa, sabi, no, they shouldn't be involved. O kumbaga, wag silang i-bully online. And there are other proper venue, diba, for this discourse.
Well, it depends on what we are after, no? If we're after ending corruption, I think think ko it's going to be a legal matter. So ang hanapin dyan is those are those people who got involved in the corrupt practices.
Yeah.
So most likely the public officials. Now insofar as their relatives are concerned, if they're not in any way involved in government contracts, labas sila doon. Oo. Yung legal aspect, hindi sila kasali. Yung mga cases that would be filed, hindi sila kasali. Kung yun ay hindi sila ginamit, for example, as dummies in any company na kasabwat doon sa sa mga control projects, mga anomalous. Pero siguro from the moral point of view, mali pa rin sila. Yung mga kamag-anak na yan, mga family members who benefit from the corrupt practices of their, say for example, congressman father, mayor na di ba? Yung mga kamag-anak na.
Kamag-anak Incorporated.
Oo, hindi siya magandang tingnan Lalo na pag fino-flaunt yung wealth.
That's right.
Ng mga nepo babies.
Ayun. Pero in relation to that, Doc, yung sabi mo, Nepo babies, di ba? I'd like to ask you now, with all of this that is happening, do you now see a shift in social behavior? Because let's face it, for the last decade or so, ang kalakaran sa social media is pagandahan tayo ng mga gamit na ipopost. Ngayon, parang may backlash na kahit hindi ka involved in any government contract, you're posting something magarbo. Ano ka, Nepo baby? Very negative na sa mga rich. So it's like parang nagiging populista, like populist institution or yung mga communist behavior na supposedly pag mayaman ka hindi ka may mali sa iyo Do you see this shift in the social behavior?
Tingin ko po because of this issue about the flood control projects, I think itong mga nepo babies, itong mga those who can afford such kind of lifestyle, magiging maingat na sila although the norm that's being ushered in by social media, lalo na Instagram, is to flaunt your wealth, flaunt your lifestyle. Pero mukhang hindi na, given this new development. Baka mas magiging maingat na sila. Rather than flaunting your wealth, flexing your wealth, baka itago na lang nila. Kasi nga, because of the fear that those social media posts might be used later on as evidence against them. Diba?
Tama.
O kaya kahit na object ng hatred ng mga tao. Diba? Kahit ngayon, I remember one celebrity na engineer. Sabi niya, engineer nga ako, pero hindi mo nakinabang sa mga government projects na yan. So parang nag-gain siya ng pagkarami-raming likes.
Pero yun nga po, doon sa mga nangyayaring mga hearings pa rin tungkol dito sa mga anomalous flood control project, nakikita natin itong mga ilang mga politicians. Kumbaga sila yung heading the way, paving the way on these investigation. Do you think nakakadagdag ba sa public outrage yung nakikita nila itong mga politicians na to, and some of them are may mga kaso pa rin tungkol sa corruption?
Yes, so maraming issues with regard to lawmakers investigating the flood control projects, the anomalous flood control projects. Number one, there's the question of moral ascendancy. Since we know very well that most of them are involved in this government project. So it's like, yung sabi nga nila, yung magnanakaw, iniimbestigahan yung kapwa magnanakaw. That's one. At saka there's also the danger of yung whitewash.
Yes.
There's that risk na since sila magtatakipan. Yun na nga, lumabas na nga kahapon There's this question of whether or not the House of Representatives in their investigation, whether or not to invite congressmen as resource persons.
That's right. Yeah. So do you agree then, Prof, Doctor, the most prudent approach is one that is suggested by PBBM himself, di ba? Para hindi rin siya mag-iimbestiga because may moral question din daw. Yung Truth Commission. So do you think this is a good idea? Plus, in Truth Commission, it's different people from different organizations like the church, di ba? So is that a more prudent approach?
Yes, I think so. I agree with that. Basta hindi lang yung the composition or the members should not be made up of politicians. Kasi there's a danger of if this is made up of politicians, baka mag-grandstanding gamitin sa susunod na election, o kaya baka nga may protection na ng mga interest. So we are definitely in favor of a truth commission that's made up mainly of representatives from various sectors, preferably from NGOs, the legal community.
So all civilians. Doc, paano si Mayor Magalong? Medyo parang napupusuan siya to be part of it. Medyo maganda naman ang reception sa kanya ng tao.
Well, kasi maganda naman ang track record ni ni Mayor Magalong. Except that ang problema is that he's a politician himself.
Yeah.
Mahirap na hindi naman sa pinagdududahan natin si Mayor Magalong, pero by 2028 tatakbo rin siya. I don't know kung ano lang position, pero tatakbo yan.
I was wondering, Prof, what would make you believe that this is really the era of cleansing, eradicating corruption, era of transparency and accountability?
Well, because that this was started by the President during his SONA. Nagbigay siya ng yung kanyang remarks na which became popular. Maya naman kayo, something like that. Tapos pinick up ng tao. So, kumagaman, the initiative is not just coming from up there, but it has already gained traction from the grassroots level. So, pinick up, and I think these two things are, necessary ingredients para magtuloy-tuloy ito, Kasi we're not just we are interested not just because we want to know the names, but we want to see those people responsible to get prosecuted, and eventually, if the evidence of guilt is strong, makulong. Dapat makulong. Sa paglustay ng pera ng bayan, Ako iniisip ko every time I watch these investigations, iniisip ko yan yung taxes ko Ang laki na binabagay ko.
Exactly. So kasi sinasabi nga nila, 'di ba, kung walang mananagot at the end of the day, walang ma-hold accountable on these investigations, all of these are just grandstanding. Pero sinasabi nga po nila, si President Bongbong Marcos nagsabi magpapa-lifestyle check sa mga government officials. And a lot of people are saying that, why don't you do it yourself? Also, pangunahan mo na magpa-lifestyle check ka. Parang ginawa ngayon ng mga akbayan, sa akbayan, nag-release sila publicly nung kanilang SALN. So, being the leader of this country, pangunahan mo na. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that. Of course, that's a huge challenge on the part of the President.
Why?
Well,
do I need to ask that question? Go ahead. Go ahead, Prof.
On the spot siya si Prof.
Well, part naman ng history ng natin, bansa natin.
Yes.
That the Marcos family has gained a reputation for
I think not only reputation, because there are decision na from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, supposedly ill-gotten wealth. Diretso na natin.
Ill-gotten wealth.
Yeah, pero the President is not part of it daw, although he is the administrator of the estate. But in relation to that kasi, Doc, I don't know what the outcome of these hearings, if may magbabago. I wanted to ask you this because in 1986, we've had enough already of corruption and bad leadership. Nag-boil over into EDSA revolution, and we thought changes would happen. Diba? And here we are with the Marcos in power, who is trying to clean up corruption, the very corruption that we fought. And until now, there is corruption. Walang nangyari, walang nagbago since then. So do you think this is another chance that we should capitalize on finally, na sana this is it, na ulitin natin, or another event that will be forgotten in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's a paradox of our history, Several years ago, we tried to cleanse our government of corrupt politicians through EDSA 1. At we succeeded. Tapos after how many decades naman, we're back. Andito na naman tayo. And the person who is leading the anti-corruption drive is the son of the person that became the object of EDSA 1. So napaka-ironic nun. Pero alam niyo, yung mga ganyang klaseng mga ironies, sometimes they can be good for us. Kasi this can be good for the president kasi nga it's high time for him to prove to the Filipino nation na yung Marcos family can also do something good for the country. Hindi lang yung kanilang nakaraan na hindi maganda, kaya rin lang baligtarin yung kanilang yung perception about them. Kaya lang linisin yung and this is the right opportunity for Marcos Sr. to do that.
Payback kay PBBM for him.
Yeah. Balikan ka namin, Prof, kapag meron ng
Medyo
nakulong.
On the
At
seat,
hindi nakalaya pagpalit ng administrasyon.
nasa hot seat na si Prof
Alright, maraming salamat po, Jago.
Thank you for your insights. Doc Dennis Coronacion, Chairman of the UST's Department of Political Science.
Now, in other news, the Department of Science and Technology is ready to help local government units, or LGU, to assess rivers and drainage systems during the rainy season. DOST Secretary Renato Solidum Jr. said digital elevation models and forecasting tools are available at the agency. These include the DREAM LiDAR system, or the Disaster Risk and Exposure Assessment for Mitigation, Light Detection, and Raging, which has mapped flood-prone areas in the country for over a decade. Solidum also highlighted the Hazard Hunter PH app, which provides data on floods, earthquakes, and volcanic hazards.
Well, and to talk more about this, we are joined by Dr. Enrico Paringit, Executive Director of DOST PCI ERD. Good morning, and thank you for joining us here on News and Views.
Good morning, Angela and Angelo. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, clear naman. All right.
Sir, can you discuss with us itong mga tools na sinasabi po maaring maitulong ng DOST sa LGUs in terms of yung usapin po ng flood controls?
Yes. A few years back kasi, we've started to map out flood-prone areas. No?
Right.
And we did this by technology called LiDAR. No? Kasi ang isa sa mga kailangan mo para ma-describe mong maigi yung baha ay kung saan pumupunta yung tubig, saan mababa, saan mataas, and the flows accordingly. And that was done for almost 300 major river basins in the country, no? By a group of experts from UP, and then of course also with other universities all over the country. In fact, parang we cooperated with 15 universities. And then we came up with this what you call flood hazard maps that you see now. And actually, hindi lang ito magagamit for purposes of early warning, magagamit din ito for purposes of planning, and then magagamit din ito for purposes of defining the problem that will be used to provide the solutions, di ba? Ito na ngayon yung mga flood control projects. What we're saying is that on the basis of the assessments of flood hazards, pwede ngayon tayo magdisenyo ng mga tinatawag na, yun nga, flood control projects. Pero ayun, parang gusto namin sana, rather than parang kalaban mo yung kinokontrol mo, no, yung flood. Siguro hindi ganon. But rather, we work with our river systems para mas maayos, no? We should live in harmony with nature, ika nga. So, we can provide these kinds of solutions. No, ang sinasabi namin sa una, meron naman tayong mga weather forecasting systems din na nag-i-improve na. Pangalawa, meron na rin tayong mga data nga, yung nabanggit ko nga kanina, itong fine scale elevation model, every 1 square meter, meron na tayong elevation sa mga pinakamababahang lugar. At gagamitin natin ito ngayon, and then now we use science and of course tools and technologies like, flood simulation and mapping.
That's right.
Yeah, so we use these flood simulation tools in order to define saan ba pupunta yung tubig. At ang maganda pa rito, we can also simulate solutions. Ibig sabihin, kapag nag-iisip tayo na maglagay ng flood wall, ng revetment, ng retaining wall, ng dam o ng pumping station, pwede na rin natin makita, teka, effective ba to kung ganitong gagawin ko? So, sa ganon, hindi natin nasasayang ang pera sa isang bagay na hindi pa tayo masyado sigurado.
Dr. I was wondering, sabi nga nila, the only way forward to this problem is science-based approach, sabi nila. And I remember itong LiDAR na to 10 years ago. Matagal na to diba? So I was wondering kung ang ganda po ng mga nabanggit nyo sa aming mga tools. Nakinig po ba sa inyo ang DPWH dito sa mga suggestion po ninyo?
Well, around the time that we completed all the mapping of the 300 major river basins. We turned over actually the results, among others, to DPWH. Isa sila sa mga recipients natin, tapos in-explain din natin kung ano ibig sabihin nito, paano ba ito magagamit. In fairness, of course, yung ibang mga district engineering offices, ibang mga regions, ni-request na nila actually talaga nila yung data para siguro magamit nila. Pero syempre, hindi na rin namin nakita kung saan nila ito ginamit. Baka ito yung sinasabi nga nilang pinagawa na ng mga master plan. Pero syempre, doon sa part kasi na yun, medyo less active kami on that part.
Yeah.
Yun siguro yung kailangan nating ayusin ngayon na ipakita talaga natin na merong integrated flood and river master plan sa bawat ilog kung saan tayo maglalagay ng mga proyekto.
I'd like to ask you about that on my end. No? Sabi nila the best way daw to mitigate flood, especially now, is as you said, to go back to what is natural sa atin, yung mga waterways natin, yung mga rivers natin. Ang tanong ko dito is if properly silted tsaka dredged yung mga rivers, all our river systems natin, do you see an improvement of 50% sa flooding sa loob ng at least sa Luzon area or sa NCR?
Well, sa problema ng siltation, totoo naman yun na marami sa ating mga kailogan, bumabaw na talaga. Pero siguro, ang laban lang dyan, dalawa, two-pronged approach. Tingnan natin, of course, yung ilog mismo. Sige, dredge natin kasi para lumaki yung kanyang capacity para hindi mag-overflow. Pero on one hand, gusto natin ding malaman at tingnan paano ba natin mababawasan yung rate ng siltation din na bumababa sa ating mga kailogan over flat areas. Yeah. That means we should also employ watershed-based approach to managing siltation. So that means kailangan din mag-employ tayo ng mga programa, mag-replant tayo, i-reforest natin, para kasi mabawasan din yung pagdaloy ng mga lupa, ng sediments doon sa ating mga kailugan. Yes. So both approaches are needed.
Back to nature.
Kumbaga, tsaka di ba, Doc, holistic approach. What I mean by that, kasi I remember there's a post of tungkol dito sa floodgate ng Cainta. Cainta yung katabi ng Pasig, nung over the weekend, nag-usap sila, dalawang mayor, na isara nyo muna yung floodgate kasi pag binubuksan nyo yung floodgate, yung Pasig naman yung binabaha. So, doon naman po sa issue ng Quezon City, sinasabi nila old drainage problem. So, paano po ba natin, ang tawag dito, ma-incorporate po yung approach na to sa buong, kunyari, dito lang, kahit sa buong Metro Manila muna, umpisahan po natin yun.
Yeah. Una, maganda yung na-highlight mo about connectivity. Ang importante nating isang concept na kailangan i-carry through ay ang mga kailogan natin ay konektado sa isa't isa. Konektado rin yan sa ating drainage system. Kaya ang tawag diyan kuminsan, flood and drainage master plan. Diba? Flood and drainage management, flood and drainage infrastructure. Hindi mo pwedeng ihiwalay ang pagmamanage sa mga ilog at saka ng ating mga drainage. Dapat kabit-kabit. So in that respect, we need to integrate all of this program of works na tinatawag para talaga kabit-kabit. Kasi kuminsan, kung kailan na muna patatapunin yung tubig ulan at saka yung baha, hindi siya ngayon mahuhulog talaga dun sa ating mga creek, sa ating mga ilog. Kasi kuminsan mas mataas pa yung ating mga ilog kaysa yung drainage plan. No? So, hindi di ba? Sorry, baliktad. Mas mataas ang ating mga drainage. Yung pangalawang tanong mo, paano naman yung mga age-old nating drainage system? Siyempre, Metro Manila has been here for quite a long period, no? So, matanda na yung ating drainage plan. Pangalawa, climate change, no? Tumataas yung ating level ng rainfall for short events, no? Kagaya nung nangyari nung weekend. Kahit ako, medyo parang halos biktima ako nung Sabado na yun. Kinabahan din ako. Ngayon, ang pwedeng gawin dyan kasi, kailangan nating i-revisit ngayon yung ating mga drainage plan. Una, mapahin yung mga yan. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng kanal, lahat ng mga tuwasang, yung mga culvert natin, lahat ng mga papasukan ng tubig, lahat ng mga exit points nila papunta sa mga creek, and then from the creek to the river, dapat magkakasama yan, magkakadugtong. Hanapan natin ng dugtungan. Kasi magtataka ka rin bakit natitigil ang tubig sa Araneta Avenue o sa Mother Ignacia, di ba? Kailangan hanapan natin saan yung pinakamalapit na daan para mag-exit talaga siya. At yun ang ating i-engineer. At dapat, yung nabanggit kong point about connectivity earlier, alam mo, The reason why we're looking at connectivity is because when we do one thing to one segment of that connectivity, maapektuhan yung downstream o yung upstream side. Kasi kung pabibilisin mo yung tubig, syempre yung mga nasa baba, papiperwisyo.
Exactly.
Diba? Pero kung i-retain mo naman, anong tawag nito? Para mapipigilan naman, no? Para mabibilaukan naman yung nasa taas.
Yes.
Sumabot din ang flooding sa taas.
Talaga.
So, dapat tayo lahat magkakasama. Siguro ang isang i-develop na rin natin at part naman dito ng ating programa na dito sa DOST is magkaroon ngayon ng isang platform kung saan nakikita natin lahat itong mga projects na to at nakikita rin natin kung may complementation ang bawat proyektong meron tayo sa flood. Magsisimula siyempre sa flood control.
Alright, Doc. Very interesting po lahat ng mga sinabi nyo. I hope we have more time to discuss that. But siguro po sa ibang araw na lang. For the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Dr. Enrico Paringit, Executive Chairman o Director ng DOST. Maraming salamat po.
In weather, the low-pressure area of extreme northern Luzon has developed into Tropical Depression Kiko. So far, Tropical Depression Kiko has no direct effect on any part of the country. Meanwhile, cloudy skies with scattered rains and thunderstorms are forecast for the Ilocos region, Batanes, Babuyan Islands, Apayao, Zambales, Bataan, and Occidental Mindoro due to the southwest monsoon. Metro Manila, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, parts of Mimaropa, Bicol, and Western Visayas may experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers or thunderstorms. And with that, I'd like to leave everyone, with a quote. Ito, wala sorry.
Yan.
Ito na. The quote goes, corruption is a cancer that eats away at a citizen's faith in democracy, diminishes the instinct for innovation and creativity. From Joe Biden. All right, and that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.